My heels clicked, too loud, as I froze against the wall, heart hammering. Laughter and music swirled, but every eye seemed to dart my way, piercing through the dim light. Lipstick smeared my lips, perfume choked my throat, and the dress, pink, frilly, wrong, clung to me like a spotlight. I was the only boy in disguise who dared this. Shame burned my cheeks, but beneath it, a flicker of thrill. Why did I look so right? Something was unraveling, and I wasn't sure I could stop it. "Wanna dance?" The voice cut through my thoughts, and I looked up to see a figure draped in a ghost costume, Casper's sheet-like form hovering before me. I froze, words caught in my throat, but before I could respond, a gloved hand reached for mine, pulling me gently toward the dance floor. My heart raced as we moved, and somehow I avoided stepping on his feet. He held me with a confidence that felt oddly natural, like I was any other girl in the room. The music swirled around us, and then he spoke again. "What's your name?" "Ashley," I blurted, the name slipping out effortlessly because, well, it was mine. "Why aren't you in costume?" he asked, his tone curious. "I am," I laughed, wondering if my disguise was too convincing. "Oh," he said, tilting his head. "I get it. Undercover cop, right?" "No, I started, but a familiar voice interrupted. "There you are, Ashley." "I've been looking everywhere." Mom's face appeared, her smile warm but knowing. "But I see you're busy, so I'll just be over there, keeping an eye out." She winked and drifted toward a nearby table, leaving me with my ghostly partner. "You look like your mom," Casper said as the song faded. "She's pretty too." The music paused, and he took my hand again, guiding me toward the refreshment stand. There, he tugged off his hood, revealing a grin I knew too well. Carter. My Carter from class. His eyes sparkled as he handed me a soda. "Carter, it's me! Ashley!" I said, half expecting him to laugh at the mix-up. "Sure," he replied, unfazed. "You're the girl I was just dancing with." Before I could clarify, Mom reappeared, her curiosity piqued. "Ashley, introduce me to your friend." I sighed, gesturing. "Mom, this is Carter." To my surprise, he turned to her, asking if I could stay a bit longer. She nodded with a smile and slipped away, leaving me standing there, unsure of my next move. Carter led us to a small table, where we sat, the music washing over us as we watched the other kids twirl and laugh. We danced a few more times, each step feeling less awkward, more like we were in sync. When the night wound down, I expected to find Mom waiting, but Carter took my hand again, leading me outside to the parking lot. Mom's car wasn't there yet, so he stayed, and before I could process it, he leaned in, his arms wrapping around me, his lips brushing mine in a soft, unexpected kiss. My heart lurched, and I pulled back just as Mom's headlights swept into view. I slid into the car without a word to Carter, my mind a tangle of confusion. Mom pulled out of the lot, stopping at a light. "That boy thought you were a girl, didn't he?" "Yeah," I muttered, still reeling. "And he kissed me, on the lips." "Well," she said, her voice gentle, "boys can't help themselves around pretty girls, honey." "But Look in the mirror," she cut in, glancing at me. "How was he supposed to know?" "I told him who I was." "Maybe he didn't care," she said, a hint of mischief in her tone. "Ever think of that?" By the time we got home, I was fuming at Carter, ready to rip off the dress and scrub away the makeup. But Mom stopped me, insisting Dad wanted to see me like this. So I slumped onto the couch, flipping on the TV to kill time. Just before Dad was due home, Mom nudged me to touch up my lipstick, saying it'd make me look polished for him. I sighed, dabbing at my lips as the back door creaked open. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the kitchen, the pink satin of my dress catching the light, its white lace trim delicate against the short sleeves and hem. The petticoat swished beneath, shifting the fabric into new shades of pink with every move, while the dress hugged my frame just enough to hint at curves. My white heels clicked softly, the blonde wig hiding my brown hair, and Mom's makeup magic had transformed me completely. My nails, painted a soft reddish pink, gleamed as I moved. Dad's jaw dropped as I sauntered in, a playful smile tugging at my lips. "Hi, Daddy," I said, my voice light. "What do you think of my new dress? Isn't it lovely?" "I didn't think it was possible," he said, his words slow. "But you look quite pretty tonight. How was the party?" Before I could answer, Mom chimed in. "Ashley had a wonderful time, honey. I was there, and she was dancing all evening." "Tell me," Dad said, leaning forward. "Who was the lucky girl?" "I was, Dad," I said, my voice bright with a mix of pride and mischief. "Carter and I danced all night. He's a great dancer." Dad's brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. He threw up his hands, chuckling, and told me to go change. Mom followed, her laughter soft as she helped me out of the dress. "You shouldn't tease your father like that," she said, though her eyes sparkled. "Now he thinks you enjoy being a girl." I smirked, slipping out of the heels. "And who says I don't?" I stood in my room, the dress pooled at my feet, as Mom's voice cut through the quiet. "What?" she said, her eyes wide. "You like dressing as a girl?" I sank onto the bed, tugging off the heels with a sigh. "Mom, you know how it goes. Every time I show up to these things as myself, I'm glued to the wall, stuck with the nerds or the outcasts nobody wants to talk to. But tonight, I was dancing, laughing, actually having fun." I stood, peeling down the pantyhose, the cool air hitting my legs. "Maybe I'd be better off as a girl. Who knows? Maybe I'd even get a date." "You're a boy!" Mom's voice rose, sharp with disbelief. "Boys don't date boys." "True," I said, meeting her gaze. "But Carter didn't see a boy, did he? He saw a girl named Ashley, and I was that girl. I even told him I'm in his class, that he knows me, but it didn't stop him. So why should it stop me?" "Ashley!" Mom's hands flew up, exasperated. "You have no idea what it's like to be a teenage girl, always fussing to look pretty, waiting by the phone for some boy to call. No, honey, you don't know the first thing about it." "Oh, really?" I shot back, my voice low, sullen, like the time I called 6 girls in a row for a date, and every single one turned me down. "You're telling me I don't know what it's like to sit home, dateless?" "Mom, come on!" She faltered, her expression softening. "I guess. But having you run around dressed as a girl isn't what your father and I want for you. We expected you to..." "To what?" I cut in, my frustration spilling over. "Sit home all the time? Play board games with you like we always do?" Mom unzipped the dress, her hands gentle despite the tension. I stepped out of it, standing in just the bra and panties. "What do I have to lose, Mom? You saw me tonight. You know what I look like as a boy, no social life, no nothing. And you saw me as a girl, with a shot at something better. So tell me, which way am I better off?" "You never said you liked dressing as a girl," she said, her voice catching. "I didn't say I did," I replied, unhooking the bra. "You just assumed I didn't. All I'm saying is, for once, I have a chance to have fun. If wearing a dress is what it takes, maybe I'll do it. I'm sick of being stuck at home." I yanked off the wig, facing her in nothing but earrings, makeup, and panties. Her eyes searched mine, confusion mirroring my own. I'd never done this before tonight, never had a reason to think about it. As a boy, I'd struck out with every girl I'd ever asked out. But as a girl, just this once, I'd danced, laughed, felt alive. Did I like dressing as a girl? I couldn't say that. But was it better than rotting at home? Absolutely. I headed to the bathroom, hearing Mom's footsteps fade as she left. In the mirror, even without the wig, a girl stared back at me, her features soft under the makeup. I sighed, scrubbing it all away, the water cool against my skin. Back in my room, a wild idea sparked. I slipped into the room next door, Brit's room, and opened her dresser. My fingers brushed a nightgown, soft and sheer. I pulled it over my head and climbed into bed, the fabric gliding over my skin with every shift. Girls, I thought, definitely had better sleepwear. The nightgown belonged to Britney, my sister. Brit had been gone for years, taken by a car accident that shattered our family. Mom had never recovered, not really. She still cleaned Brit's room like she might walk through the door any day, treating it like a sacred space. Dad and I had stopped trying to pull her out of it. If keeping Brit's room frozen in time brought her peace, so be it. Growing up, Brit and I had always laughed about our names Ashley, usually a girl's name, and Brit, undeniably feminine. We'd get mixed up male, but we'd just shrug it off, turning it into a running joke. When the plan came up for me to dress as a girl for the party, I didn't argue with Mom about picking the outfit. Instead, I went to Brit's room myself, choosing the pink dress, the heels, the wig. It felt right, like borrowing a piece of her to step into a world I'd never known. Lying in bed now, the nightgown soft against me, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, I'd stumbled into something worth chasing. The next morning, I woke to the soft rustle of Brit's nightgown, its delicate fabric still clinging to my skin. I lingered in bed for a moment, savoring the unfamiliar comfort, then grabbed my robe and shuffled to the kitchen. Mom was there, stirring a mug of coffee, but Dad had already left. She glanced up, her eyes catching the nightgown peeking out from under the robe. She didn't say a word until I slid into a chair across from her. "A nightgown?" she asked, her tone more curious than sharp. "Yeah," I said, shrugging. "Why not? Figured I'd end the day the way I started it." She set her mug down, studying me. "And what about today?" I leaned back, feigning nonchalance. "Hadn't thought about it," I lied, though the idea had been simmering since I woke. "But if you're okay with it," she sighed, her fingers tapping the table. "I talked to your father last night. Neither of us is thrilled about you dressing as a girl, you know that. But if it's just a sometimes thing, maybe we can let you try it." My heart skipped. "So, maybe I'll try it again today?" "I guess," she said, her voice heavy with reluctance. "But you're on your own getting dressed. And don't forget we have that dinner tonight, so be home in time to change, okay?" I nodded, wolfing down breakfast before heading to Brit's room. My fingers grazed her clothes, settling on a simple skirt and a fitted tee. I grabbed a pair of her gym shoes and some ankle socks, then carried my haul back to my room. The thought of dressing as a girl again, not for a party, but just because, sent a shiver through me. It wasn't just the clothes, it was the chance to step out of the shadows, to be someone who wasn't stuck on the sidelines. I knew the risks, though. If anyone found out, the whispers and judgment would follow. Still, I pushed the doubt aside and headed to the bathroom to shave and wash up. I shaved as close as I could, determined to get it right. Back in Brit's room, I stood before her vanity, staring at the array of makeup. Foundation went on smoothly, but I skipped the eyeshadow, opting instead for a thin line of eyeliner and a dark pencil to frame my eyes. Mascara lengthened my lashes, and a touch of blusher warmed my cheeks. Returning to my room, I stuffed the bra with the seed-filled nylons I'd used before, then sat on the bed to pull on pantyhose. I knew girls wouldn't typically pair pantyhose with ankle socks, but I needed the smooth, even tone they gave my legs. The skirt came next, hugging my hips, followed by the tee, and finally, the socks and gym shoes. Brit's shoe size was close enough to mine that they fit, if a bit snug. Standing before my mirror, I settled the blonde wig into place, brushing it until it fell naturally. Clip-on earrings and a swipe of lipstick completed the look. I turned, studying myself from every angle. The girl in the reflection was back, confident and real. Satisfied, I headed to the kitchen. Mom looked up from the counter, her hands freezing mid-task. Her eyes welled up, and tears spilled over before I could say a word. "Mom, what's wrong?" I stepped closer, panic rising. "Did I do something? Tell me." "No, dear," she said, her voice soft, trembling. "You didn't do anything wrong. It's just—" "What? Do I look that much like Brit?" She shook her head, wiping her eyes. No, it's not that. I just, I miss her so much, and you look so much like a girl. I'll change, I said quickly, guilt twisting in my chest. I don't need to do this, not if it hurts you. No, she insisted, reaching for my hand. You were right last night. I've never seen you light up at a party like you did. Sitting home with us all the time can't be fun. But I don't get why the other kids seem to ignore you. I hesitated, then said one word, barely above a whisper. Dad? Mom stilled, her face tightening. She knew exactly what I meant. Years ago, Dad had been convicted of having sex with a minor mom herself. She'd been 19 days shy of 18, and Dad, already 18, hadn't known the trouble it would cause. It wasn't the police who pushed the issue. It was my grandfather, furious and unrelenting, who demanded they charge Dad as a sex offender. Dad's lawyer argued the absurdity of it, and while Dad avoided jail, his name ended up on a list that followed him like a shadow. The kids at school, their parents they all knew, and that stain had bled onto me, painting me as an outcast before I even had a chance. Mom's silence hung heavy as we sat in the kitchen, the weight of my single word Dad still lingering. She knew the story too well. Dad's name, stubbornly etched on that sex offender list, refused to budge despite his efforts, even after he and Mom married, even after Britt and I came along. The state wouldn't budge, and one nosy neighbor, spotting his name, had tried to run us out of town until our lawyer set them straight, but the damage was done. Mom and Britt had been spared the worst of the gossip, but me? I got painted with the same ugly brush, guilty by association. Guys like me didn't get invited to the cool parties or asked to hang out. That's why I spent so much time at home, invisible to the world. Mom fidgeted with her mug, then spoke softly. Your grandfather regrets what he did to your father, you know? But your dad hasn't spoken to him since, and I can't blame him. He's the one who has to explain that mess every time he applies for anything. She paused, her eyes locking onto mine, searching. I don't know what to do, Ashley. You look so pretty. I'm sure Carter would love to see you again, but you remind me so much of Britney. Not your face, but the way you carry yourself. You two were so alike in so many ways. I'll change, I said quickly, starting to stand. I don't want to upset you. No. Her voice was sharp, almost a shout. Stay as you are. In fact, let's get you fixed up properly so you can come to dinner with us tonight as a girl. I hesitated, sinking back into the chair. Dad won't like it. He thinks I'm... Your father saw you last night? She said, her tone firm. He knows you're pretty as a girl. It's not that he dislikes it. He just doesn't understand how a boy can look so... feminine. She straightened, a spark in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Since we've agreed you can dress up sometimes, let's go to the mall and get you some things of your own. Shoes that actually fit, for starters. Are you sure? I asked, caught off guard by her sudden enthusiasm. I'll grab you a purse, she said, already heading out of the kitchen. Give me a few minutes to get ready. When Mom reappeared, she looked transformed, makeup accentuating her features. A sharp skirt and blouse, replacing her usual frumpy attire, her hair loose instead of pinned up. She looked 10 years younger, like the mom I remembered from before Britt's death. You look amazing, I said, and she just smiled. A real, unguarded smile. At the mall, Mom was a whirlwind, a side of her I'd never seen. She steered me into a lingerie store first, plucking a padded panty from the rack to give me curves, then grabbing cotton panties in soft colors and a bra in my size. After paying, she nudged me toward a changing booth to try on the padded panty. I slipped it on, glancing at my reflection. My hips looked rounder, more natural. In the shoe store, I tried on pair after pair, and Mom bought black and white heels plus gym shoes that actually fit. I swapped Britt's too tight sneakers for the new ones, feeling a little more like myself, or whoever I was becoming. Mom's mood was lighter, her steps bouncier. like she'd shed a weight she'd carried for years. Passing a makeup store, I glanced inside, and that was enough for her to pull me in. A saleswoman redid my face in minutes, crafting a look far sharper than what Mom or I had managed. Mom bought the products she used, and we continued on, my reflection in every storefront window catching me off guard. "You seem happy," I said as we walked. "I haven't done this in a long time, honey," she replied, her voice soft. "It's nice to buy nice things for you." I stopped, turning to her. "This isn't about turning me into Brit, is it? I mean, Brit is gone," she said, her voice steady but laced with pain. "No, I'm not trying to replace her. I just want you to look your best, that's all." But we both knew it was more than that. Mom missed having a daughter to shop with, to share those small, quiet moments that Brit's death had stolen. If my wearing a skirt brought back a piece of that joy, I wasn't going to argue. Not when she looked more alive than she had in years. At lunch, I spotted kids from school. A couple of girls I'd chatted with at the dance waved, and a warmth spread through me. I wasn't invisible anymore. After eating, Mom kept shopping, and I let her, happy to see her so engaged. Wandering alone while she browsed lamps, I stumbled across a display of breast forms. Curious, I asked to see one. They felt soft, almost real, and the box said they could be glued on or worn in a bra. They weren't pricey, but I hesitated, wondering if I should ask Mom. This was supposed to be an experiment, right? But experiments should be done properly. I found her, showed her the forms, and to my surprise, she didn't hesitate. "Get them," she said, pointing to a changing booth. I slipped them into my bra, the weight tugging at the straps, a strange but not unpleasant sensation. As we left the store, I felt them shift with each step, grounding me in this new version of myself. We picked up fake nails and polish at Mom's suggestion, then headed home around 2. In the kitchen, Mom's grin was infectious as she opened the nail package. She stripped off my old polish, glued on the fake nails one by one, then shaped and painted them a soft plum. I stared at my hands, the longer nails making them look undeniably feminine. "Can I get these off?" I asked, half laughing. "You glued them on?" "Let them dry," she said, ignoring my question. "Now go get ready. Pick a nice dress for tonight, something that goes with your black or white shoes." I studied her, the way her eyes sparkled, the lightness in her voice. It was like she'd decided to push me toward being a girl, though I wasn't sure why. Part of me wondered if she saw Brit in me, despite her assurances. But as I headed to Brit's room to choose a dress, I realized I didn't care about the reason. If this made Mom happy, if it gave me a shot at a life beyond the walls of our house, I was all in. No matter what anyone else thought. With my nails dry, I slipped into Brit's room and opened her closet, my eyes landing on the dress I'd always loved seeing her wear. It was elegant, yet simple, and I'd always thought she looked stunning in it. I was sure it would fit, and if it did, I had a feeling I'd look just as good. I carried it back to my room, setting it aside to check my reflection. I eased off the wig, careful not to smudge the makeup that still looked flawless. The breast forms caught my eye as I undressed. They were closer to my skin tone than I'd expected, almost seamless against my chest. I considered gluing them on, but decided against it, wary of Dad's reaction if he lost it. Instead, I slipped into one of the new panties Mom had bought, layering the padded panty over it before pulling on pantyhose. The padded panty worked wonders, sculpting my hips into a convincingly feminine curve. The new bra, with its front clasp, was a game-changer. It tugged my chest muscles upward, and when I nestled the breast forms inside, the result was startling a healthy, natural-looking cleavage. Digging through Brit's things, I found a waist nipper I'd never tried. It took some fumbling to hook it, the unfamiliar fasteners fighting my long nails, but once it was on, my waist cinched into a delicate hourglass shape. It wasn't drastic, just enough to redefine my silhouette, though I hoped I'd still manage to eat at dinner. I slid the dress over my head, zipping it up with care, then stepped into the new black heels. In the mirror, the transformation was almost unnerving. I secured the wig, brushing it until it fell perfectly, then opened the jewelry bag from the mall. The pearl earrings clipped on easily, but the matching choker necklace was trickier with my new nails. After some struggle, it sat snugly against my throat, accentuating the dress's neckline. A spritz of perfume and a quick touch-up of lipstick completed the look. I heard Dad's voice downstairs 20 minutes ago. He'd walked in, giving Mom plenty of time to break the news. This was it. Do or die. I gave myself one last glance, then opened the door and stepped into the hall. Descending the stairs, I turned toward the kitchen, where voices murmured. A shaft of sunlight spilled through the window, catching me as I entered. Mom saw me first, her eyes widening. She grabbed Dad's arm, gently turning him to face me. His expression tightened, a storm brewing behind his eyes. "Your mother told me what you two did today," he said, his voice low. "I can't say I'm happy about this, Ashley." He stepped closer, his gaze searching. "Is this what you want? To dress like a girl? What will people say?" "No one will say anything," Mom cut in, her hand firm on his arm. "Ashley's turned out to be a beautiful girl, and that's not her fault." "But Ashley is our son," Dad said, his voice rising. "Our son is wearing a dress. Doesn't that bother you, even a little?" Mom shook her head, unflinching. "No, it doesn't. This started as a costume for the party, but if you'd listened to Ashley, you'd understand why this matters." I shook my head, silently begging her not to make me say it. I couldn't bear to tell Dad that his conviction had tainted me, that the kids at school shunned me because their parents feared him. Some had even admitted it, their moms and dads warned them to steer clear, not caring that I was innocent, only knowing the label attached to his name. It wasn't fair, but it was my reality. "I can't, Mom," I said, my voice barely audible. "You tell him. I'll be in the family room." I walked away, their voices fading into a muffled hum. I didn't want to hear Mom explain how I'd been sidelined, how dressing as a girl had cracked open a door to a social life I'd never had. It sounded absurd, but I didn't mind the clothes. Sure, they were fussy snaps, zippers, and buttons galore, and makeup, and hair might become a hassle, but that one night at the dance had changed everything. For the first time, I'd felt like I belonged. Guys and girls alike treated me like I was one of them, and I soaked up every second of it, dreading the moment I'd have to go back to being the old Ashley, the one nobody noticed. Dad was the only hurdle now, but I pushed the doubts aside, focusing on the upside. A chance to be seen, to be someone. Dad appeared in the family room, his frame filling the archway. "I had no idea, Ashley," he said, his voice heavy. "None at all. I thought, well, it doesn't matter what I thought, does it?" "It's not your fault, Dad," I said softly. "It's just how people are." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I'll go change. You stay as you are. But I'm going to fix this, put an end to something that should have never happened. Then maybe we can live like normal people." That night, Dad was the perfect father, calling me his daughter without a hint of hesitation. We laughed, shared stories, and for the first time in years, Mom's soft laugh filled the air, a sound so rare it felt like music. Something had shifted in her, pulling her out of the fog she'd been lost in since Brit's death. I hoped it wasn't just me dressing as a girl, but deep down, I suspected it was. When Mom stepped away to the restroom, Dad leaned in. "Your mother seems like her old self tonight. I'm wondering if the way you're dressed has something to do with it." "She's been like this all day," I said, glancing at her empty chair. "From the moment we hit the mall, she's been happy. The only thing different is me, dressed like this. You figure it out, because I can't." He said nothing, his eyes following Mom as she returned, stopping to chat with people, her smile radiant. She was back the mom we'd missed for so long, and I couldn't help but wonder if I'd somehow unlocked that door, even if it meant stepping into a world I was only beginning to understand. I knew what I was thinking, and though Dad didn't say it outright, I could tell he felt the same. Mom's newfound spark was tied to me looking like a girl. Maybe because I echoed Britney, or maybe because I was still here, part of the family she could hold on to. Dad caught my eye and winked, carrying on like nothing was amiss. But later that night, as I settled into my room, he slipped in quietly, closing the door behind him. "I haven't seen your mother like this in years, Ashley," he said, sitting on the edge of my bed, his gaze steady. "If it doesn't bother you, and it doesn't seem to, why not give her a few more days with a girl named Ashley? It might be exactly what she needs." I didn't respond, and he left without pressing me further. For the next 2 days, I woke up, slipped into a different skirt and blouse, and spent the hours with Mom, doing whatever she wanted, shopping, cooking, or just talking. Each day, she seemed brighter, her laughter easier, her steps lighter. I was growing certain that my dressing as a girl was the key, though I wasn't sure how I felt about it. We were in the kitchen, flour dusting the counter as we shaped cookies, when Mom's voice faltered. "Britney," she said, the name slipping out like a reflex. Her eyes widened, horrified, and before I could say anything, she fled the room, tears streaming down her face. I stood frozen, the weight of that name crushing me. I finished the last batch of cookies, my hands moving on autopilot, then retreated to my room. Piece by piece, I shed Ashley the girl wig, makeup, clothes, until I was myself again, the boy I'd always been. I could hear Mom sobbing in her bedroom, and though part of me wanted to comfort her, I stayed away. I wasn't Britney, I was Ashley, and despite her denials, Mom had been seeing her daughter in me. I'd let myself believe she was healing, that she saw me, but I was wrong. Hurt and angry, I left her to her grief. When Dad got home, his eyes widened at the sight of me, back in my old clothes. I pointed toward the stairs, and he dropped his lunchbox, bounding up to Mom. Alone in the kitchen, I grabbed the polish remover, scrubbing away the last traces of glue from my nails. With a soda in hand, I stepped onto the front porch, sinking into the shade of the big tree. Sitting there, I swore I'd never dress as a girl again. It had given me a fleeting taste of a social life, but at what cost? Mom was using me to resurrect Britney, clinging to a past that was gone, and I was just a stand-in. The gain wasn't worth the pain. I'd go back to being the old Ashley, the one who faded into the background, and leave the girl in the closet. I spotted Carter before he reached the porch, his familiar stride unmistakable. I fought the urge to bolt inside eventually. I'd have to face him. "I came to see the other Ashley," he said, a grin spreading across his face as he stepped up. "Just wanted to tell her she was real cute. Some of the kids, especially the girls' club, want to talk to her." "About what?" I snapped, gesturing at myself. "As you can see, we've got nothing in common anymore." "Maybe you think so," Carter said, grabbing my arm lightly. "But whether you like it or not, you looked great the other night, and everyone could see you were having fun for the first time in forever. That's why the girls want to talk to you." "They know I'm not a girl," I said, pulling away. "And this morning, Mom called me Britney. I'm not my sister Carter. It makes me mad, and it makes her feel awful. So why should I bother?" "Because we want you to," he said, his voice soft, almost pleading. Before I could respond, Dad appeared on the porch. "Ashley, can you come inside?" he said. "Think about what I said," Carter added. "I'll tell the girls to wait, but think about next Saturday, okay?" He walked off, leaving me to follow Dad inside. Mom was nowhere in sight, but Dad gestured to the kitchen, and we sat at the table. "Your mother's upset," he said, his voice low. "She called you Britney by mistake, out of habit, not because she sees you as her. You can't imagine how shaken she was. I know you're hurt, but you both need to move past this. She loves you, Ashley, and would never hurt you on purpose. Having you around as a girl made her feel like she used to with Brit. Not because you're Brit, but because it let her feel needed again, helping with your hair, teaching you girl things. It gave her purpose. I was thinking maybe you could be Ashley the girl one more time and have a long talk with her. Besides," he added, his voice softening, As a girl, you don't have to worry about my background, do you? Dad had laid it bare, confirming what I'd suspected, but framing it differently. Mom wasn't trying to replace Brit, she was finding a way to feel alive again. Still, she had to understand I wasn't my sister, and I wouldn't pretend to be. If I dressed up again, it would be for all of us, for me, not to play a role in her grief. I looked at Dad and nodded, then headed to my room. With the clothes I'd worn before and the new makeup, I transformed back into the girl in half an hour. Keeping it simple, no eyeliner, just foundation and blusher, I checked my reflection and stepped out. Mom wasn't in her room, so I descended the stairs, the scent of fresh cookies guiding me to the kitchen. Dad was gone, but Mom stood there, her back to me. Without a word, I poured 2 glasses of milk, piled a plate with cookies, and set them between us, sliding a glass toward her. "Ashley," she started, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, it just slipped out. It felt so much like before, when Britt and I—" "Mom," I said, cutting her off gently but firmly. "I know what happened, but you have to let me be me. I know you miss Britt, we all do, but she's gone, and I'm not her." I leaned back, watching her. "Carter stopped by today." I sat across from Mom, the plate of cookies between us, my words hanging in the air. "Carter said the girls' club wants to talk to me, the girl me. But what do I tell them? If I meet them, they'll expect to see Ashley the girl more often, won't they? If I do this, dress like a girl outside the house, will you help me? I'm not Britney, Mom. I don't know what she knew about being a girl. I need you to help me be me, not someone you wish I was. Brit's gone, but I'm here, and I need you now more than she ever did." Mom's eyes filled with tears, her sobs breaking the quiet. I stood, and she rushed into my arms, clinging to me as her cries softened. Holding her, I spoke gently. "I'm not even sure I like dressing as a girl enough to do it often, but I'll try to be the kind of girl you'd be proud of if you'll help me and accept me for who I am. Okay?" She nodded, taking my hand, her gaze steady. "Tell me about this boy Carter." "He's just a friend," I said, shrugging. "He knows I'm me, and he brought the message from the girls. Nothing special, just a guy." "Why?" "Just curious," she said, a faint smile breaking through. "Yes, I'll help you, and I promise I'll never call you Britney again." "You and your father are right, it's time to let go. It's easier now that we understand each other." She paused, her expression shifting. "But Ashley, how easy will it be to keep switching between boy and girl? Won't that get confusing for everyone?" She pulled me back to my chair, her eyes searching mine. "You said you had more fun at that party as a girl than ever before. I know being a teenager is hard, but hiding who you are might not be the answer. You also said you're stuck at home most weekends. Whose fault is that? And why do you have more friends as a girl? What's different about you, besides how you look?" I hesitated, her questions cutting deeper than I expected. "Ashley," she said softly, "if you want to be a girl, I'll help you any way I can. But flipping back and forth might not work long term. So, how about this? Stay dressed as a girl until the break is over 2 weeks, then we'll decide. If you want to keep going, we'll make it work. If not, you go back to school as a boy. Deal?" I nodded, then explained why Ashley the girl seemed to click where Ashley the boy didn't. "It's the makeup," I said. "It hides the acne, makes my skin look normal. And as a boy, I get lumped in with Dad's reputation. As a girl, I don't." Her face tightened at the mention of Dad's past, but she nodded, understanding the truth in it. We sipped our milk, nibbling cookies, and Mom suggested gluing on the breast forms since I'd be a girl for 2 weeks. I couldn't argue, so we went to my room. I stripped to the waist, and she carefully attached the forms, their weight settling against my chest. When I put my bra and top back on, every movement felt amplified, the forms tugging with each step. It was strange but oddly comforting. Then Mom removed my wig, grabbing mousse and a brush to style my real hair into a short, feminine cut. I ditched the wig for good, swiped on fresh lipstick, and hugged her tightly. After she left, I slipped into a pair of jeans to see if I could still pass as a girl in casual clothes. The fit was perfect, hugging my curves like they belonged. I felt ready for anything. Dad spotted me and pulled me aside. "Want to help me with something?" he asked. When I said yes, he laid out his plan, a bold move to clear his name. The state had ignored his pleas to remove his name from the sex offender list, so he was going public, taking his story to the press. And I was to be the centerpiece. I agreed instantly and found Mom, explaining what we were planning. Then I headed to Carter's. His eyes widened as I laid out Dad's strategy, but he stayed quiet until I finished, then nodded. Dad was launching a full-on assault, exposing the state's refusal to acknowledge the truth of his case. I needed Carter and the girls' club to back us up. Walking home, my mind churned. Conformity was everywhere: cookie-cutter houses, identical yards, the single tree out front. A boy in a dress didn't fit that mold, and that's exactly what we were challenging, along with the state's mistakes. Dad's plan was risky. He was about to tell the world he was on that list. If the public rallied, he might be vindicated, at least in their eyes. But I was at risk too, parading as a girl to escape his shadow. If one parent made a fuss, I could be ostracized all over again. I'd read in a textbook that there is no purity of form. People come in every shape, size, and identity. Who said I couldn't wear a dress? My thoughts tangled, but two things stayed clear. Helping Dad clear his name and showing Mom her place in our family was still vital, even without Brit. I wasn't just doing this for them, though. For the first time, I was starting to see a path for myself, one where I could be seen, not just survive in the background. The sting of being an outcast had faded under the glow of acceptance I'd felt at that party, and I was ready to risk it all to keep that feeling, even if it meant returning to isolation. Britney's death and that one night in a dress had sparked everything, pulling me into a fight I couldn't back away from. It was time to stand up, no matter how much it hurt, to end this for all of us. When I got home, Mom was out, so I flicked on the TV, sinking into the couch. An hour later, she burst through the door, her face set with fierce determination. She showed me the bags of supplies she'd bought, asking if Carter was on board. I nodded, and she reminded me we had just 2 days left. Tomorrow would be hectic, but I headed to my room to prepare. Morning came, and I checked my body for stray hairs, finding only a few I'd missed. I slipped into panties, jeans, and a top, then joined Dad for breakfast. He fixed me with a serious look. "You sure about this, Ashley?" "Yes," I said, unwavering. He nodded. "Our lawyer's filing the papers for my story today. That gives us a day and a half before the media storm hits." As he left for work, Mom led me to my room, her expression signaling she was all in. I expected her to push for the padded panty, but she waved it off. "Wear that top, grab your purse, and come with me." She drove me to her salon, where she'd booked me for the full treatment. The stylist trimmed my short hair, then wove in extensions, lengthening it to my shoulders. It took 3 hours to perfect, plus another hour to dye it a uniform shade with subtle highlights, crafting a style that flattered my face. I thought we were done, but the stylist held me back, pulling out waxing strips. My eyebrows were sculpted, my nails manicured, and a makeup artist spent another half hour transforming my face. 6 hours later, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. Every minute had been worth it. Mom paid, booking us both for the next 3 days, promising they'd handle my makeup so I wouldn't have to worry. Back home, Mom introduced me to a corselet, a contraption that felt like medieval torture. As she laced it tight, I gasped. But the mirror didn't lie. My figure was undeniably feminine. No bra needed. I slipped into the dress. Mom zipped it up, and I swapped earrings, touched up my lipstick, and stepped into low heels. "Ready?" Mom asked. "As I'll ever be," I replied. "Call Carter and tell him you're heading over." She dropped me at Carter's house, and I took a deep breath before ringing the bell. His mom ushered me to the back patio, where Carter, Dylan, Ethan, and about 10 girls waited. All eyes followed me as I grabbed a soda, asking Ethan to open it to save my nails. "Everyone," Carter announced. "You know Ashley. She has something to say." I'd planned to just explain the situation, but nerves took over. My voice shook at first, but I started from the beginning, how alive I'd felt at the party, how Carter and everyone made me feel included, and how I'd always been left out before. It was a raw confession, touching on the pressures we all face as teens. Then, I laid out the truth about Dad's conviction, how the state refused to clear his name, and how every new neighbor was warned about a sex offender in the area. I admitted how I'd been unfairly judged for something I had no part in. Finally, I shared our plan to go public, challenging the state's system through the media, and asked for their help. I made it clear they didn't have to join me, but their support would make it easier. Exhausted, I sank into a chair, drained from bearing my soul. Silence hung for a moment until Dylan spoke. "You done, Ashley?" I nodded. "You're so full of crap you can't even see it," he said, stepping closer. "Want the real reason you were left alone?" "Sure," I said, bracing myself. "What?" "Your sister." I froze, stunned. "She was your dad's pride and joy, and we know you all loved her," he continued. "Her death hit your family hard. But you didn't know about her blackmail scheme, did you?" "That's a lie!" I shot up, voice cracking. "A damn lie!" "No," Dylan said softly, and I slumped back down. "It's not, and I can prove it if I have to. Please don't make me." He took my hands, his voice gentle. "Ashley, none of us knew if you were part of her schemes." "How could we? But when you showed up as a girl at the party, we thought it was just a costume. Then Olivia and Sophia saw you at the mall, out in public as a girl. That's when we knew you couldn't have been involved. You wouldn't have exposed yourself like that if you were." I sat there reeling, the weight of Britney's secrets crashing over me. All this time, I'd thought it was Dad's past keeping me on the outside, but it was Brit's shadow too. The patio was quiet, everyone waiting for me to respond, but all I could think was how little I'd known about my own sister and how much I still had to face to set things right for my family. Sophia stood, her voice cutting through the tension. "Ashley, we're not stupid. We know about boys who want to be girls, or at least dress like them. But that's not the issue here." She glanced at the others before fixing her gaze on me. "Yea, if you want our help, tell us the real reason." My mind spun, grappling with Dylan's revelation about Britney's blackmail scheme. How had I missed it? She always had cash while I scraped by, but I'd never questioned it. I scanned the faces around me, not judgmental, but solemn, waiting. I faltered, then steadied myself. "Look at me. Mom spent a fortune today to make me look like this. I thought as a girl you'd accept me, that I could finally belong. How could I have been so blind?" Tears pricked my eyes, and I dabbed them carefully, preserving my makeup. "The rest is true. Dad's going to the media to challenge the state, to get his name off that list." Olivia spoke up. "But you found out you like being a girl, didn't you? You wouldn't have let them do all this to you otherwise. Am I right?" "Who cares?" Emma interjected. "Ashley looks better than you, Olivia. If she wants to be a girl, let her. I'm not scared of a little competition." "You should be," Dylan teased. "Ashley's giving you a run for your money." Carter leaned forward. "We don't care how you dress, Ashley. Maybe a few kids will, but we're the ones you asked here. Cut the crap, tell us what you need us to do." I laid it out, explaining the plan. It was a big ask, and I knew some might not show, but even a few would make our point. Dylan exchanged glances with Ethan and Carter, and then the girls swarmed me, pulling me away from the guys. Zoe pushed through, standing so close I could feel her breath. "Ashley, are you planning to stay a girl?" I'm not sure," I stammered. "Ashley, you know girls drive guys wild, right? We make them do dumb things, tease them, flaunt what we've got, and hold all the power." So, I'm asking again, will you stay a girl? Their faces watched me, and suddenly, it clicked. From that first night at the party, something had been tugging at me, a feeling I couldn't name until now. I wanted to be accepted, not just as part of the group, but as a girl. Yes, I said, my voice firm. If I can. Zoe pressed a small pin into my hand, a cheap ruby in a gold ring, the symbol of their group. Wear this as a mark of your femininity. We accept you as one of us, one of the girls who hold power over men. They hugged me, and Grace pinned it to my dress as tears welled up again. The guys were huddled, whispering, but the girls led me to the far side of the patio. Does your dad know? Grace asked. I nodded. He knows. Mom took me to the salon today. This is all or nothing. It might make things worse. But we have to do it, or we'll always be under this cloud. I'm done with it. We'll be there, Zoe said. Call Olivia and she'll spread the word. Thanks, I said, my voice catching. All of you. Don't thank us, Zoe replied. Thank Carter. He set this up. If you ask me, he's got a thing for you. Nah, I laughed. He knows who I am. He knows I'm not really a girl. Mom's call interrupted, urging me home. I started to walk, but Carter offered a ride, earning winks from the girls. Maybe he was a little crazier than I thought. Dad was waiting on the porch when Carter dropped me off. I thanked him and joined Dad. The suit was filed today, he said, excitement in his voice. Nathan's making a statement to the press tomorrow. The day after, it'll hit the fan. He lowered his voice. I know this started as a costume, but I need to know, for me and Nathan, are you going to keep dressing as a girl? Dad, I said, taking his hand, I spent 6 hours in a salon today, extensions, acrylic nails, dye job, waxed brows, the works. Would I do that if I didn't mean it? I've got appointments every day to look good for the cameras. Of course I mean it. Inside, I kept my plan to myself, smiling at the thought. Mom was her old self again, handing me an apron to protect my dress as we cooked dinner. Later, in my room, I found a pale blue peignoir and robe set on my bed, the chiffon shimmering seductively. I slipped it on after cleaning up, the fabric swirling around me as I joined Dad in the family room. His eyes widened as I sank into a chair, but he said nothing, though he flipped channels faster than usual. The next morning, I was back from the salon by 11, my makeup fresh and hair reset. I slipped into a new dress Mom and I had picked out for this moment. We watched our lawyer's announcement on TV, and Mom went to get ready. Dad was at work when I spotted the first camera truck rolling in. I grabbed the phone and called Olivia. The first truck's here, I said, my heart racing. The storm was about to break, and I was ready to face it as Ashley, the girl I was choosing to be. We kept the door shut tight until Dad and Nathan fought their way through the swarm of reporters. I stayed out of sight, heart pounding, clutching a secret I couldn't hold back. Dad? I said, my voice barely steady. Yes, Ashley? Did you know Britney was running a blackmail and extortion scheme at school? What? His face paled. What did you say? Nathan grabbed my arm, pulling me away from the windows. Mom and Dad followed, their eyes wide. What about Britney? Nathan pressed. I spilled what Dylan had told me, adding that Zoe could fill in more. Can you call her? Nathan asked, urgency in his voice. I need to talk to her. Sure, I said, grabbing the phone. Nathan's conversation was a series of grunts and sharp questions. Then he shooed us out. When he emerged, a grin spread across his face. Those reporters are good at digging, and they'll uncover Britney's scheme soon enough. Here's how we'll use it. He laid out his plan, and though Mom and Dad were reeling from the news of Britney's crimes, Nathan's insistence won out. He strode to the front door, Dad at his side, and faced the press. The questions flew most about Dad's conviction, some sympathetic, others skeptical. None touched on Mom, Britney, or me until Nathan seized the moment. This man's son, Ashley, he began, voice commanding, has been unfairly branded with his father's stigma, just because he's male. Is that just? Ashley endured years of isolation because parents demanded their kids avoid him, despite his innocence in his father's so-called crime. He struggled alone until recently, when he stumbled onto a way to reclaim his place, sparking conflicts within this family. His sister, Britney, turned to crime blackmailing students to shield her brother from further ostracism. Nathan paused, his hand on the door. Let me introduce the newest member of this family. Mom squeezed my hand, and I stepped onto the porch. We'd chosen my outfit carefully, a sundress with thin straps, its fitted bodice hugging my corseted waist and accentuating my bust, flaring at the hips to end just above my knees. I'd adjusted my bra for subtle cleavage, added perfume, touched up my lipstick, and slipped into low white heels, swapping jewelry for a delicate set. The reporters gasped as I appeared. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ashley, Nathan said. As you can see, she's a beautiful girl, and her friends standing behind you are here to support her choice to embrace this change. Half the reporters turned to Carter, Ethan, Dylan, Zoe, Grace, Liam, and Olivia, while the rest fixed their eyes on me. Is it true you were excluded from school activities? One asked. Not exactly, I said. I could go, but I was usually alone. Counselor, another called. You expect us to believe this girl is a boy? She doesn't look like any boy I've seen. That's the point, Nathan replied. Ashley has become a stunning young woman, backed by her friends. But this began 17 years ago when a vindictive man filed charges the police wouldn't retract. That injustice has snowballed, pushing Ashley and Britney to extreme measures to escape a stain on their father's record that should have been erased when he married his wife. Who can blame them? These kids just want to be accepted, like any other. Ask yourselves, how long could you endure being shut out? Ashley, a voice shouted. Do you date? Is there a special boy? Are you gay? Is that why you're doing this? No, I said firmly. I don't date, I'm not gay, and there's no one special. This is... Thank you, everyone, Nathan cut in, gripping my arm to silence me. This isn't about Ashley or her sister. It's about an injustice that's dragged on too long. There are 1,854 people on the sex offender list who've been proven innocent, like this man, yet the state claims they can't remove them. It's a simple database. Any high schooler could fix it, but they say it's impossible. Must families like Ashley's suffer forever? I noticed a car pull up across the street, an older man stepping out, watching from a distance. Nathan fielded more questions until he called it quits. That's enough for today. Contact my office for more. Inside, Mom waited, her face tense. Your father was out there, Dad said to her, across the street. Mom nodded, silent. I'd never met my grandfather, so the man meant nothing to me. The doorbell rang, and Nathan opened it to reveal my friends, grinning wide. They flooded in, surrounding me, Carter at my right. I've got to go, Nathan said, but I'll be back the day after tomorrow for the next announcement. As he stepped out, I felt a hand on my back, Carter's. Mom ushered us to the patio, but I hesitated, spotting a shadow in the frosted glass of the front door. Her glare sent me outside, Carter guiding me along. The reporters were gone, but the weight of what we'd started pressed down. Britney's crimes, Dad's fight, my transformation. It was all out now, and there was no going back. The shadow in the frosted glass could only have been my grandfather, I thought, and I shut the patio door with a soft click. Zoe's voice broke through, buzzing with excitement. That one lady reporter asked me if you were really a boy. She didn't believe it said you don't look anything like a boy in a dress. Grace giggled. Yeah, she wanted to know if we were sure you were a boy, and why we were here if we knew. Liam stepped closer, his face serious. I told her why, Ashley. I wasn't at the last meeting, nobody called me. But when Dylan told me to come today, he said I'd learned something. He was right. He leaned in, his voice low. I'm as much to blame as anyone. A lot of kids look up to me, and I did nothing when I saw you stuck on the sidelines at every event. I'm sorry, Ashley. I should have stepped up. He glanced at the others. It took a lot of nerve to stand out there dressed like a girl. I couldn't do it, and I don't know any guy who could. Turning back to me, he added, You don't have to do this to be accepted. But if you stay like this, we'll make sure nobody messes with you. Then he pulled me into a hug. The patio door opened, and we all turned to see Mom, followed by our high school principal. He scanned the group, then approached me, taking my hands with a smile. I had no idea this was happening in my school, Ashley, but now that I do, we'll ensure no one's left out again. You're welcome as a girl if that's your choice, and like Liam said, no one will bother you. I understand you're doing this for your dad, but becoming a girl could backfire. You know that, right? Not with my friends, family, and you behind me, I said brightly. I've realized I don't mind being a girl, except for some of the clothes, so I don't think I'll change, sir. What you see is what you get. Not quite, he said, grinning. I see a girl, and so does Carter, I bet. But what he gets is a boy in a dress. Not for long, Olivia chimed in. I bet Ashley's a girl before we graduate. The principal shook my hand and left, followed by most of the group. Carter, Olivia, and Liam stayed, and I grabbed drinks, settling at the small table. Unable to hold back, I placed my hand over Carter's, grinning as we sat. The patio door opened again, and Mom appeared with the older man I'd seen, my grandfather. His eyes were wet, hands clasped tightly, but I stayed seated, staring back as he gazed at me. Without a word, he turned and walked inside, Mom trailing him. I turned to my friends. That was my grandfather, the one who pressed charges against my dad. I've never met him, don't know anything about him, and don't want to. Carter, Olivia, and Liam left soon after, and I went inside. My grandfather was still there, now with a small elderly woman, my grandmother, I assumed. I started for my room, but Mom stopped me. Ashley, these are your grandparents. Yeah, I figured, I said curtly. Can I go to my room? I want you to stay, my grandmother said softly. I don't have anything to say to him, I snapped. Or probably you. There's a reason I don't know you. I looked at Mom. Can I go now? I'll come loosen your corselet, Mom said. Maybe Grandma can join us? I didn't reply, storming to my room. I kicked off my heels, unzipped the sundress, and pulled it off just as they entered. Ignoring them, I hung the dress in the closet. Mom began untying the corselet's laces, and my grandmother spoke. You don't know how much your grandfather regretted what he did, Ashley. He tried to stop the prosecution, but they went ahead. It wasn't his fault. I spun to face her, anger flaring. Maybe he tried, maybe not. But he didn't help us, did he? He knew Mom and Dad were getting married and still filed those charges. I stepped into cut-off jeans. As far as I'm concerned, he doesn't exist. If I never see him again, it'll be too soon for all of us. Pulling on a tee, I added, maybe he'll file charges against me now. Maybe he doesn't like boys becoming girls. I understand how you feel, Grandma said. What he did was wrong. I told him so, but he's stubborn. He filed those charges without telling me. I lost my daughter and never saw you kids. That's a high price, even for me. I'm not interested, I shot back. You had years to make it right and didn't. Now that we're exposing how stupid he was and how unfair the system is, you show up. How's it feel to be the outcast? Neither spoke, so I pressed on. I know how it feels, but I won't tell you. Lacing my sneakers, I headed for the door. Take him home and wait for the press, like we did. Downstairs, I saw him approaching, but I slipped past and out the door, slamming it shut. I needed to escape the suffocating tension. My grandparents had started this mess before I was born, yet somehow, not Dad or the flawed law was the center of attention. I walked down the street, barely noticing neighbors mowing lawns or washing cars. I didn't think about looking like a girl, only the storm about to break. My anger at my grandparents burned they'd set this in motion, and I was left to clean it up. The risks loomed large. One parent's complaint could land me in trouble the moment I stepped into school as a girl. Dad's name might stay on that list. his status broadcast to even more people. Mom could slip back into her gloom, and my friends might abandon me. Once, I'd had options. Now, I had one. I had to stay a girl not just to prove a point, but because it felt right. I wandered for nearly 2 hours, lost in thought, and was stunned to see my grandparents' car still in the driveway when I returned. Dad despised them. Why hadn't he kicked them out? He spotted me as I walked in, pulling me into the kitchen. Gripping my arm, he spun me to face him. "Tell me, Ashley, are you just some drag queen making a point, or are you our daughter?" "I'm not a drag queen, and you know it," I snapped. "Then listen," he said, his voice firm. "Like it or not, those people in there are about to have their lives dragged through the same mud we've been in. Do I want them here? No. Do we need them to win? Yes. They're your grandparents, and whatever you think, they deserve some civility." "Grandparents?" I scoffed. "Grandparents show up for birthdays, for your cancer scare, for Britney's funeral. Where were they? Not a card, not a call, nothing. They're just strangers to me. Why should I care? Now you want me to face that old man and let him tear into me like he did you? He can go to hell, Dad. I'm staying a girl, and he can't stop me." "That's the point, Ashley." He released my arm. "We don't expect you to love them or be close, but we do expect you to act like a lady. Be polite, hear them out, you might learn something." Before I could argue, he led me to the family room. I took the far chair, facing everyone. My grandfather's face was red, tear-streaked, and Grandma clung to his hand, her eyes equally wet. Silence stretched until Mom spoke. "Ashley, we can't undo what's happened. We've learned Britney ran a blackmail ring not to help you, despite what Nathan said. We should have seen it. She never needed money. Now our son is dressing as a girl, looking better than his sister ever did. We're not here to stop you. None of us think you can quit. My dad, your grandfather, will make a public statement tomorrow. If you stand with him, it'll show we're united as a family, no matter what. Truth doesn't matter, only that the public sees it our way." Their eyes were on me, and I knew I couldn't refuse Mom. I nodded, and my grandparents left soon after, leaving us alone. Mom repeated that I didn't have to keep dressing as a girl, that my point was made. I shook my head. "Until Dad's name is cleared, I'm staying a girl. I like it maybe more than I should. I don't mind the effort to look nice." I showed them the ruby pin the girls gave me. Mom left briefly, returning with a near-identical pin, her eyes soft. We went out for dinner, and at home, the news coverage was surprisingly positive. Long shots of me on the porch aired, the commentator highlighting the law's flaws. A female reporter admitted doubting I was a boy until Zoe confirmed it, adding that my friends supported my choice to be a girl. Seeing them stand up for me brought tears to my eyes. The next morning, after my salon appointment for hair and makeup, I chose a tan skirt suit with a brown jacket, white top, and white heels, pairing it with white jewelry and light red lipstick for a prim look. My resentment toward my grandfather simmered. He'd caused a lifetime of pain, but duty to my parents held me steady. I added perfume, switched to a white purse, and joined Mom, who'd also dressed up. Dad was already gone. We headed to Nathan's office for the next press conference. It was staged, and I stood beside my grandfather as he spoke, admitting he'd overreacted by filing charges against Dad. He described how he and Grandma had been cut off from us, seeing Britney and me for the first time in years only recently. His performance was so convincing, I almost felt for him, until I remembered the birthdays, the hospital visits, Britney's funeral, all without a trace of him. We'd managed without him, and I saw no reason to change that. I smiled when expected, even held his hand once, but my bitterness held firm. Nathan railed against the law's unfairness, urging the state to remove Dad's name and listing why. As we stood there, I noticed a car pull up and park at the curb, its occupant obscured but watching. As the car door opened, every head turned. The governor stepped out, striding toward us with purpose. He scanned our faces, Nathan, my grandfather, Mom, Dad, and me, before joining Nathan at the podium. His voice boomed, steady and commanding. The law is clearly flawed. If a young boy feels he must dress as a girl to escape its consequences, that's proof enough. Based on recent facts and the overwhelming public response, I'm ordering the Attorney General to remove this man's name from the sex offender list and expunge all related records. My staff confirms I have this authority, and I'm using it here. I'm also ordering a review of the list's processes to prevent such injustices. As you know, I've long opposed listing minors for life, especially in cases like this. This family's ordeal highlights the state's misuse of power, and I'm asking the legislature to revise the criteria to ensure this never happens again. He took Nathan's arm, flashing a smile for the cameras, and they moved inside. Dad and I followed silently, stunned by the weight of his words. Once the door was locked, the governor turned to Nathan. Clever ploy, using this man's son dressed as a girl. But isn't that pushing it? Doesn't it put him at risk? It was my idea, sir, I cut in. The kids at school already know, and some have talked to me about it. I don't see a problem. Besides, there's more to it than just Dad's situation. I see, he said, shifting to Dad. Your name will be off the list by Monday, 10 a.m. I hope you'll help me push the legislature to fix this law so it doesn't happen again. Of course, Dad said, shaking his hand, then hesitated. If Ashley chooses to stay a girl, can we make it easier for her, so she isn't harassed by those who don't understand? I think we can manage that, the governor replied, especially after what she's done because of a flawed law. To Nathan, he added, My staff will contact you with the necessary documents. He shook our hands, pausing at me. I don't know anyone with your bravery or fortitude. You must love your father deeply to do this. I envy him. With a warm smile, he stepped out, leaving us reeling. The governor's order lifted the stain from Dad's record, but I knew school would still be a battle. If I reverted to being a boy, I'd likely fade back into the shadows. Besides, I liked how I looked as a girl, how I felt. As we left Nathan's office, reporters swarmed us. Ashley! Ashley! Their voices rang out. We paused for questions. Is it true the governor granted your father clemency? He did, I said. Correcting an injustice that should have been fixed years ago. Now that it's over, will you go back to dressing as a boy? I smiled. My friends accept me this way. I see no reason to change. And you support your son wearing dresses? A reporter asked Dad. Clothes don't define character, Dad said sharply. If a dress helps my child through this trauma, I support it. Ashley is my child, and I'll always love them, no matter what they wear. Now, excuse us. 3 days later, Dad's name was officially cleared, along with 232 others in similar cases. The legislature began reviewing the law to give judges more discretion. At my final salon appointment, I could have cut my hair and returned to my old self, but chose to wax my arms and legs instead. Being a girl had been exhilarating, and I saw no reason to stop. Mom and I sorted through Britney's clothes, keeping what fit me and donating the rest. I moved into her old room, claiming it as my own. Mom never slipped back into her grief. Dad earned a promotion, and I started school weeks later. Most kids accepted me as the girl I presented, with only a few clinging to old biases or hassling me. My grandparents tried reaching out, but the pain they'd caused was too deep for me to embrace them. Mom began speaking to them, but Dad never did. I went to lunch with Grandma at Mom's urging, but it was tense. She said they'd be there when I was ready, and oddly, I believed her, though I wasn't there yet. School was a whirlwind at first, then settled into routine. Carter, Ethan, and Dylan always greeted me, but Carter never made a move, which suited me. I wasn't ready to date boys. That changed at my birthday party when Dylan asked me out. We saw a movie and grabbed burgers. Like other girls, I kept him at arm's length, but let him kiss me. That was 2 years ago. Now, as I head to college, I can't recall what being a boy felt like. I never went back, choosing to live as a girl and embrace my life fully. Time stretched ahead, a quiet promise I held close. The little pills were enough for now, their subtle work aligning me with the girl I'd become. There was no rush, time was my ally, and I was content to let it unfold. For the first time, I wasn't running from or toward anything. I was just Ashley, living my truth, surrounded by a family healing and friends who saw me. The world could wait.